Welcome back to the Celtics Nation Rise podcast. I'm your host, Griffin Aldrich, and alongside of me is your co-host, Seamus Zarlingo and Luis Gomez, presented by Celtics Talk Weekly. So, really quick, I just kind of want to say we're now with Celtics Talk Weekly. It's official. You guys see it. It's different, and it's great. I'm so happy that we came to a conclusion. We're doing this. The content's going to be great. You guys are going to have a lot of stuff. And I just can't wait to see what we bring. We're going to bring a lot to the table. But let's talk about some Celtics. So the Boston Celtics, last time we saw you guys, 3 games against the Utah Jazz, Trailblazers, and the Kings, who we'll talk about later, but you guys obviously see. Unfortunate injury happened to Jayson Tatum. But I want to start off 3 games. Lewis, we'll start off with you. How are you feeling? 3 games, 3 dubs. How are we feeling?
I'm feeling really nice. We're blowing out teams how we're supposed to, and we're the defending champs. I love that we're playing the way we are recently. The season's almost is about to finish soon, so this is the where you want to catch that momentum.
Yeah. Seamus, what about you?
Well, for me, the Boston Celtics at this point in the year, outside of the Tatum injury, right? I mean, we're going to talk about the Tatum injury on here, but outside of the Tatum injury, the Boston Celtics, they're hitting their stride at the right moment. We've seen the entirety of the Celtics season so far. At the beginning of the year, the team started 19-4, off to a tremendous start, was up there with OKC and Cleveland in terms of records. Nobody thought, oh, OKC or Cleveland, they're going to run away record-wise from the Boston Celtics yet. We got to that portion of the season when the Celtics went 14-11 midway through the year. It was at the end of December into January, encompassed a little bit of February as well. But really, ever since that mid-February mark, right before All-Star break, the Celtics went into All-Star break 7-1, came out of All-Star break with a 3-game winning streak. Of course, they lost 2 in a row to the Pistons and Cavaliers, but then they rattled off quite a few after that as well. So the Boston Celtics, where they sit at this point in the year, uh, they've been tremendous. They're 21-4 in their last 25 games, and this is what you want to see out of a ball club trying to go back to back or just simply trying to win a championship. I mean, throw away the whole back to back nonsense. Just winning a championship, a team has to be playing well going into the NBA playoffs, and that's what the Celtics so far project to be doing in these next 10 games. When the next 10 games finishes, the Celtics are going to be going into the playoffs playing well, and that's where this stretch right here for the Boston Celtics has been ultra impressive because a lot of games that we're going to go over just really not highly competitive games. They're not. There's not a lot of hype around them. They're really just for the Boston Celtics. It's like going into work with some of these games. I mean, really against the Nets, against the Heat, against the Jazz, against the Blazers, the Sixers. I mean, you think about all these different teams the Celtics have faced as of late. The Kings the other night. These are just business games. These are games the Celtics just have to go in, clock in, get over with, and be done. And that's where that's where the Celtics can't really find their mentality. Although that is on the surface, that is what they're doing right now in the schedule. You're seeing the Celtics mentality. It is ramping up towards the playoffs. The Celtics are playing excellent team basketball. They're getting after it on the defensive end of the floor. And from that standpoint, you can see there's a much different tone to this team right now than there was in January when the effort was very questionable on a night to night basis. Now, these games, I would have worried in January that, you look at the end of the schedule, you have a couple games out there that you really you don't see as these hugely hyped games. Think about that 7-game home stretch for the Celtics. You had the Nuggets game, you had the Thunder game, you had the Cavaliers game, um, and also the Lakers game in there as well. All of those games were big moments for the Boston Celtics, big games for the Celtics. But once the Celtics got past that stretch, it was a little bit more easy running for the Celtics. And you could look at that portion of the schedule and go, are they really going to give their full entire effort into these games? And that question has been answered with it's been a little in between. However, you see it's timely basketball in timely moments. The Celtics come through, and not only are they coming through in timely moments, they're coming through with guys who are playing off the bench. Guys like Baylor Shireman, Peyton Pritchard, of course, has been hot all season long. Derek White continues his tear. I mean, Tatum and Brown. Tatum's been absolutely phenomenal this season. Brown has taken a little bit, I don't want to say a step back, but he's almost leveled out in a
Yep.
sense from where he was last season. Tatum and Brown kind of went back and forth. This year, Tatum has been that catalyst to everything the Celtics have done well. But you just see who's performing well on the Celtics roster. Hauser's put up a couple of nice games. Torrey Craig is starting to come around a little bit off the bench. Al Horford, he's starting to look spry again. So is Drew Holiday. I mean, you look at those guys on Basketball Reference, 15 and 17 years experience. But that's just what you want to see out of the Boston Celtics going ahead into the playoffs is the Celtics playing well, and they're exactly where they need to be. Outside of the Tatum injury, of course, which we'll get to, the Celtics are exactly where they need to be right now. Playing good basketball, the mentality is there, the play on court is there, and the rhythm within the whole season is there. We expected this team after a championship run to take a little bit of a step back, I will say, but ever since that moment, um, in January, the Celtics have turned the corner the other way and have ramped up towards the playoffs, and that's what we're really seeing right now out of this team.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like you said it perfectly. I mean, the Boston Celtics, as of recently, they have been kind of playing man basketball. Like we've talked about this a lot on the postgame shows on Celtics Talk Weekly. It's been kind of honestly it's been kind of just all right, we're getting by basketball. And I love a take on Celtics Talk Weekly too. I think it was Franco that said it, but it's kind of more so, all right, we're at the end of the season, we're gonna hit the simulate button. We're going to hit the simulate button for the rest of the season. So I feel in a sense that's kind of where we're at. And you guys see that. I mean, you guys think about it. I feel that's kind of what the season has been. Last year, I mean, the Boston Celtics, you saw it. They were dominating all year. They were blowing out teams. I think it was 3 games they won by 50 last year. We obviously beat the Raptors by 50 this year. So still you had that dominance, but it's nowhere near as big as it was last year. So honestly, I love the points that you said, and kind of just even I wish we did this last year because we had the Celtics Nation Rise MVP, which I do that recaps. Obviously, go check them out. But Jayson Tatum's at the top of it with 25, and then you have Porzingis with 6, and then you go down to Jaylen Brown with only 5. I mean, think about it. 5, you could count some losses. All right, he could have won an MVP if the Boston Celtics have won that game. You could be like, all right, well, we think about that Cleveland game. If they won it, Tatum and Brown could have easily won it. But ultimately, like 5, you think about it. Like we've been tracking them well. Obviously, it's who we think impact the game the most. But only 5 times this season, and Tatum's at 25. You could tell who's the best player on this team this year for sure. But ultimately, I thought that kind of stretch was again better basketball than we've seen for sure. We saw that Nets series that it was kind of close games, but this series obviously with these 3 games it was a lot better basketball, and we were playing and kind of I like how we've like kind of put the gas pedal on and we kind of went through. But we're gonna look at the Utah game first. We'll go through them really quick. There's not much to talk about with them, and I want to move forward to the big breaking news. But you look at that Utah game. I mean, Porzingis with 27 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, and shot 60%. He's been on a tear, and I kind of we can mention Porzingis. What are your guys' thoughts on his play as of recently? I mean, we kind of already mentioned it again last week, so we won't go on it too much. But how much? We'll just use this for the Utah, like to talk about Utah. How much has his game as of recently affect the Boston Celtics? Like, how much have we missed Porzingis? Lewis, if you want to start off and just say what you've seen from Porzingis and his efforts as of recently.
I mean, he's stepping up. That's the Porzingis we know. And I know he's been hurt. He wasn't with us in opening day, and then when he started playing with us, he still wasn't playing like the Porzingis that we know. But this is his true colors right here. You get me? That's the Porzingis that we know, and he's been on fire in that Utah game. He was on fire.
Yeah, and can I interrupt really quick? And I want to add on to it. Those Nets games too. He's just like it shows. Just sorry, I didn't mean to like take the spot from you. It just shows how much his presence has been missed, and that, like I said, we had a whole podcast dedicated to this, but like that illness we were so worried about, but now he's back, and it shows us how much he could affect us in a playoff series, especially that we're only 5 games out of first place. I don't think we'll catch it, but still, Lewis, you continue on with your Porzingis. I just had to add that
Yeah,
in.
yeah. So you could tell that we need him. If we want to be the best team that we can for the playoff, we need him. And you already know he's a good player. And if we want to win this thing back to back, we definitely need him to be there.
Yeah, you can't. Sorry, Seamus. I know I'm getting all hyped up about this, but you can't, in my opinion, like I've said this take 1,000 times, but from a Celtics fan perspective, do we win the championship without Porzingis? 100%. Yes. As a Celtics super fan, yes, we win it. But as an NBA, like looking in, Cavs, all right, there's a little trouble there with Porzingis. We need some big men because they have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, obviously. So there's concern there. And then there's concern with OKC. All right, we're going to need more scoring. So yes, we could still win the championship, just going to be a little more difficult without him. That's my thought. Seamus, what's your thoughts?
Well, Kristaps Porzingis, I mean, this time, what, a week and a half ago, we were talking about Kristaps Porzingis. How much time is he going to miss? He missed 8 straight games, 9 out of 10 games with an illness. Yet, coming away from that stretch, it almost seems like, the illness, was that just a ploy to rest Kristaps Porzingis, or was he really just ill? Either or, Kristaps Porzingis came back into the lineup, and ever since Kristaps Porzingis, he missed that one game. He missed the back-to-back game against the Portland Trailblazers, the first night of the back-to-back with the Trailblazers and the Kings. But we're going to see that from Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis. So him missing that one game, that's just precautionary. That's what we've been seeing all season. So that doesn't really matter in terms of his whole entire streak of health. But we really see Kristaps Porzingis is healthy out there on the floor right now. And since coming back into the lineup, Kristaps Porzingis, he's averaging 23 points per game, 2.8 assists per game, 8.3 rebounds per game, and he's shooting the ball at a 56% clip from the floor and from three. He's only 30% from three, so on what we have about 5 attempts a game. So really, Kristaps Porzingis is not shooting well from three at this moment in time since coming back in the lineup, but everything else, his scoring, his rebounding, his activity, particularly on the defensive end of the floor. I think we've been seeing that really since midseason with Kristaps Porzingis, but ever since he came back into the lineup after missing 8 games, Kristaps Porzingis, I mean, he really hasn't missed a beat. Really has not missed a beat whatsoever. And leading those 3 games leading up to that Portland game where Kristaps Porzingis missed, I mean, he scored 24 points, 25 points, and 27 points. And he won, of course, Celtics Talk Weekly post game, the player spotlight, 3 games in a row. 3 games in a row, Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, he came back into the lineup, and then all of a sudden was when he won 3 player spotlights in a row. Bam, bam, bam. It's as if Kristaps Porzingis did not miss a beat with this Celtics team whatsoever. And we were talking about that Utah game with Kristaps Porzingis. He had 27, 10, and 6 in that one. So 27 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, a steal in that game as well. Shot 9 of 15 from the floor, 3 of 5 from three. But really, you look at Kristaps Porzingis' shooting lines, he is the king of shooting 9-4. He 9 for 16, 9 for 13, 9 for 15 coming back in the lineup the first 3 games, of course, 5 for 13 last game. So four field goal attempts or 4 field goal makes rather off from that mark last game. But ever since coming back into the lineup, Kristaps Porzingis has provided an extra spark to the Boston Celtics from the center slot that we all know the Celtics, they feel comfortable with the backup centers they have. I mean, look, Luke Cornett, Al Horford, Kata. Tillman hasn't been used at all, but if you really had to break the glass on Tillman and use him like a fire extinguisher, it's like, go ahead, do it. I mean, if the whole room's on fire, might as well use Tillman out there. But the Celtics do have within their rotation, their big man rotation, a comfortable bunch, really 4 guys after Kristaps Porzingis. Yet Porzingis, he is this team's Kevin Durant in the sense of Kevin Durant brought the Warriors up to another level. Without Kevin Durant, the Warriors of the late 2010s, they still would have been a really, really good team. They still could have even been a great team. I mean, they won 73 games without Kevin Durant, went to the finals, of course, lost in 2016. But without Kevin Durant, the Warriors would have been able to win more games throughout the late half of the 2010s, even without KD. And I will say, would it have been as dominant? No. And that's the point here is Kevin Durant made that Warriors team dominant. Kristaps Porzingis at the center position makes this Celtics team dominant, particularly on the offensive end of the floor, but defensively, what he can do as well as a 7'3" big man deterring shots. That's also big for what Kristaps Porzingis does for the Boston Celtics. And right now, the main concern, I should say, there's not even a concern. It's just the main point when it comes to Kristaps Porzingis is keeping him bubble wrapped, keeping him healthy come playoff time. Because a lot of people, I will say this, this might go off on a tangent here for some other player, just saying. But a lot of people think that Kristaps Porzingis is the most important Celtic when it comes to his health come playoff time. Now, obviously, Tatum, Brown, they're the pillars of the team. But a lot of people are using the phrase, "Oh, if Kristaps Porzingis isn't healthy, I don't know about the Celtics." Or if Kristaps Porzingis isn't healthy, I don't know if they're getting past the Cavs. I don't know if they're getting past the Oklahoma City Thunder without Kristaps Porzingis. I'll say this: it's undoubtedly very important for Kristaps Porzingis to be out there on the floor during all these series. But I'll mention a player too that needs to be healthy: Drew Holiday. He's going to have
Holiday,
the
yep,
toughest matchups.
yep.
And well, let's face it, he's been the player. Kristaps Porzingis. The whole question surrounding him has been health this season. I mean, he started the season missing 17 games. Kind of went in and out of the lineup during some portions of the season. When he's in the lineup, he's very consistent. But that's the thing is when Kristaps Porzingis is in the lineup, there's no regression, and we're even seeing it right now. He's just popping off once coming back into the lineup after missing 8 straight games. As for Drew Holiday, there's been a little bit of regression there this season from his game, particularly that corner three. I mean, that corner three went from a 60% clip to a 30% clip like that. And that's the player to me that really needs to be healthy in order for the Celtics to find success come playoff time. Because, like I said, that big man rotation after Kristaps, still a pretty solid big man rotation after KP. Yet that guard rotation, I mean, really, if Drew Holiday is out of the lineup within that guard rotation, the two starting guards, it's Pritchard and Derek White. And then who's coming off the bench?
AD.
No other guard. No other guard. I mean, we're probably going to be looking at your guy, Griffin, JD Davison. I mean, that's really who we're looking at for guard play. I mean, Tatum, he plays that point forward position, but just in terms of general ball handlers on the roster, Celtics would be missing it without Drew Holiday. And so that's why I think just it's important for the Celtics to see both Drew and Kristaps come healthy come playoff time. But Kristaps in general, we're talking about him. For me, he's come back in the lineup. He's looked amazing. In the last 10 games, it's really I don't want to say hold your breath, but that's what it is. It's hold your breath. Let's see if Kristaps Porzingis can make it to the playoffs fully healthy, and then after that, it's about making it through the entirety of the 4 rounds completely healthy because the Celtics are going to need him for not only the first round, it's going to be second, third, and fourth as well, and that's the priority because when Kristaps Porzingis is out there on the floor, he brings another level of greatness to this Boston Celtics club that they otherwise simply wouldn't have without Kristaps.
I agree, and I just to even add on to your Drew Holiday thing. The reason why you guys know the reason why the Boston Celtics won Banner 18 last year, a good reason why is Drew Holiday's presence. I mean, it's undeniable that that was the case. But just to add on to your point about Porzingis, I mean, his intensity is so great on the floor, and it kind of shows you, like you were talking about player spotlight, Celtics Nation Rise recap. Um, you got he got that first Brooklyn game, and then I steered the direction and gave it to Shireman. You could have given it to Shireman or Porzingis. Obviously, Porzingis had a better night with Shireman. It's just like in the amount of time he did it in, and I was just impressed with his game. And then it went right back to Porzingis. I mean, he was at 4 Celtics Nation Rise MVPs and went right up to 6. Like that's incredible for just coming back. But now we kind of move into that Portland game because we just have so much news about Durant, and I wanted to get into the Durant one, but I'm like, oh, let's just finish these games and then we'll get into that. But just talking about Shireman too in that second Brooklyn game, I mean, you guys have to admit, I think this will kind of cover up the Trailblazers game as the Boston Celtics beat the Portland Trailblazers with a final score of 129 to 116. Again, kind of another slow game. Not much to have onto it, but I feel like Tatum definitely won Celtics Nation Rise MVP with 30 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, and shot 45.8% from the field goal. But you look down there, Baylor Shireman, I mean, 6 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, he's just been a hustle player for the Boston Celtics, and you guys see him like just he's getting comfortable, and that's a great thing coming into playoffs. That Baylor Shireman, your rookie, is getting comfortable with this team. I mean, we saw that big game, and we could even look at the Kings game. Even like he's still like you saw him in that picture that the Celtics posted. I wish I had it up there, but just holding up getting up Tatum or something. I forgot who they were, but like he's just getting used to that lineup. And like you look at the Kings game, I mean, 9 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 1 block and shot 50%. I mean, he's getting comfortable with his team, and he's not being selfish with the basketball. He's passing it. He's been a player to look out for. So we this is kind of like I said again, very like at this point in the season we're kind of already eyes on playoffs. Our eyes have been on playoffs the last couple episodes, but there's still stuff to talk about. And I think with that Trailblazers game, it's Baylor Shireman. So and obviously Tatum, but I want to ask you guys how, like, we had a whole episode about Shireman too, but what are your thoughts on Shireman's play as of recently? We could talk about Trailblazers. You could even add a little twist into it. Lewis, what about you? What's your thoughts?
He is getting comfortable. You could see it like in his role recently. Maybe hopefully they give him more minutes and he could show off more of his talent. But for now, I will keep him I will keep him in that position that he is right now, and not rush the process and just let him be, get him even more comfortable in the court, and because it's a big deal. He's playing for the Celtics.
Yeah,
he's not playing for any whatever franchise. He's playing for a historical franchise. So I would just keep him how he is right now, and little by little, get him to roll in that position, and hopefully he keeps performing how he recently is.
Can I add on to that too? When I had my interview with Baylor Shireman, he said, I mean, it's a historic franchise. I mean, he like just the opportunity to get drafted by the Boston Celtics. If you guys haven't watched it, go check it out in the shorts, YouTube shorts. But he's just like, that interview was great. Just him saying it's just such a privilege to play for this historic franchise. And I think he wants to make a career for himself here. I don't think it's just a little easy, all right, well, I'm gonna play here. No, I think he actually wants to make a career for himself in Boston. He doesn't want to be, sorry, I don't mean to kill JD's vibe, but he doesn't want to be JD and rot in the G League. He doesn't. He wants to. It's true. It's the unfortunate cause, but JD Davison has.
You're always the one hyping up the G League, Griffin. Okay, he's rotting the G League. Wow.
Wow. Right, it's undeniable. Where has JD been? He hasn't been playing for the Boston Celtics. He has of recently because it's coming to the later part of the season, but we haven't seen anything of him. And admit it, is JD, all right, this is a question. I love JD. One of the most talented guys you'll see in the G League. And I think if he plays for a weaker team where he's given the role more, I think he'll excel for sure. But admit it, is he right? Just give me a yes or no, both of you guys. Is JD Davison rotting in the G League? Lewis, yes or no?
I mean, at this point, yeah.
Seamus?
To me, well, rotting is such a harsh term. It's like rotting, like he's playing basketball, he's getting paid. Like, if I were to approach you guys right now and go, you want to get paid for playing basketball, I think we would all be on board. It's like that. That's where I see it. I'm like, well, JD Davison, I'm like, he's getting paid to play hoops. It's like, hey, pay me, $50 a month to play hoops. I'll play hoops at what? That would be, look at the contract at the end of the year. You'd be like, that's nothing. It's like, well, I'm playing hoops for $50 a month. That's better than zero. I'll play hoops for free. So that's where I'm like, right? It's like, I don't know. In terms, it's relevance though. It's relevance because I'll say relative to the NBA, right? Where it's like, oh, you're a star, you're famous, everybody sees you. It's like, are you rotting away in a cage away from that? It's like when you're in the G League, maybe just a little bit, sure, but there's still there's greatness at each level, right? I mean, JD Davison, he leads in all these categories for the main Celtics all time, and it's like, well, there's greatness at at each level. You just gotta. I'm defending JD here. I'm saying, well,
Usually it's
hey, do
me.
your thing,
Usually it's
man. Do
me.
your thing down with the main Celtics or up with the main Celtics. How we have that
Uh,
conversation.
yeah, we gotta tell Lewis that. We gotta tell
Yeah,
Lewis what.
yeah. How do you go? It's like everybody says you go down to Portland, Maine, down to the main Celtics, but it's really you go up to
Yeah,
Portland. Like everybody says up to Portland, like down to Portland, up to Portland. Like you're going down to the G League, but you're really going up to Portland. It's like people can't
Yeah,
decide.
it
It's like, oh,
makes
are you going
sense.
down
Yeah,
to the G League or are you going up to Portland? It's like I don't know. It's like up or down, up or down. But
yeah,
but that,
that's
that that's what I'm saying. Is JD up or down in Portland right now?
He's
Whether
the upper.
whatever he's down in the G League, up in Portland, he's
I
doing his thing.
yeah,
And for me, I'm like, well, there's a level of greatness within that too, because Portland, Maine. I mean, I hate to say it. Hey, I'll see you. You said something about the G League rotting down in the G League. I'll say this about Portland, Maine. They're never gonna have an NBA team. They're
no,
never gonna. So you
but
got as if you're gonna make that your city, it's like might as well do it with the Maine Celtics,
yeah,
or I
and
guess the Sea Dogs. You got the Sea Dogs up there too.
yeah, we got the Sea Dog, and listen, the main Celtics are on a tear, and like just look at this. This is what you see from JD Davison every night. I mean, 34 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds. Like he's a wizard down there with the basketball for sure. But like uh, and
Totally got off track of Baylor Shireman not wanting to do that.
uh,
Although that is a great point. It's like, would you rather be in the G League forever or actually make an NBA roster? It's like,
you're right, you're right. But down there, just had to have this point, and then you could go on about Shireman, and then we'll move on. But they're on the way to a playoff spot. I think they're still first, so they're looking good. They've been winning games, but I want to hear what you thought of Shireman and just kind of with the Trailblazers and how he's been as of recently.
one quick question.
Yeah,
Didn't he have like a pretty good game,
who is
like a
Shireman?
20-point game
Yeah,
recently?
Shireman. Yeah, against Lewis hasn't been on for a while. It's been a lot of like we've been figuring some stuff out. Yeah, but against the Nets, this was a while ago. He had 20 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and shot 87.5% from the field goal. Great night from Shireman. But
The Nets.
well,
against the
There
Nets.
you go, yo.
in terms of Baylor Shireman's entire game log, just going to that real quick, looking at the whole season, it's like, okay, Baylor Shireman played 5 games by New Year's. So by New Year's and by mid January, he played 5 games. 5 games. I mean, he's played the last 6 games for the Boston Celtics. And in those games, he's played 10, 10:46, 15:55, 12:25, 26 minutes, and 28 minutes. And what I like to see there is the ramping up of consistency within a role for Baylor Shireman within the Celtics rotation. Right now, the Boston Celtics are not so much experimenting, but trust me, with all these guys in and out of the lineup, and us facing teams who we're both not going to see and both going to see in terms of putting film up on different tablets for teams out there. The stretch the Celtics are in right now, they're at a point in the season where they have to know what they're going to look like come playoff time and which players can really bring more to the squad come playoff time if a player were to get injured or if we were to need spot minutes out of somebody somewhere. That's what we kind of got frustrated with when it came to Joe Mazzulla and the rotations in January. It felt like the team just every single night the team was inconsistent within both a singular game and the stretch of games they were playing in January. It was just inconsistency. And through that stretch, we were all kind of sitting here going, why not play a guy like Jordan Walsh more? Why not play a guy like Shireman more? Why not give JD Davison a run right now? It's like nobody else is sparking energy out on the floor. Why couldn't some of these young guys, specifically from the main Celtics, why couldn't they go out there and do it themselves? And yet we didn't see that in January. We didn't really see it in February. Back then too, Jaden Springer, of course. Jaden Springer was a huge name before he was traded. In that regard, play Springer. Finally happened against the Clippers that one night. Went
Mhm.
well, and that was the highlight of Jaden Springer's entire Celtics career.
It's so
But
sad.
we were kind of saying, give these guys a run. Let's see what we have in some of these guys, especially, come playoff time. The rotation, thinking about it, the Celtics aren't as deep as people want to believe. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so weird because we'll come on here on some games and go, the Celtics, they're they're one of the deeper teams. You see their depth. Oh, and then another game will go, this team really thins out when you take away somebody from the starting five. And you have your starting five of Drew Holiday, Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis, Brown and Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Jayson Tatum. But then off the bench, you look at the bench play and you do realize there is some scarcities to different levels of versatility you can go to, because you have Pritchard coming off the bench as a guard replacing Holiday or White. And in that scenario, Pritchard, he's a little bit of a smaller player. There are some things defensively with Pritchard that you look at and go, okay, he's going to be compromised from a size perspective. Gives the energy, gives the effort, gives the intensity and the physicality on that end, but he's still, regardless, still a small player. So there's going to be some limitations there if you're playing Pritchard heavy minutes, which we still will during the playoffs and going into the playoffs. But just replacing him, or just replacing a Holiday or White with Pritchard, that brings some limitations to the Celtics defensively. Sam Hauser, again, defensively, he's more of an offensive oriented player. We know he's a sharpshooter. And then that's why we brought in Torrey Craig, because if you look at the guard rotation has a couple of guards that we feel really comfortable with. Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Peyton Pritchard, the three guys right there. But after that, like I said, the guard rotation a little thin there. But the forward rotation, that rotation before the addition of Torrey Craig, that forward rotation, and even right now, it's like we're kind of side eyeing it a little bit. The big man rotation is completely fine. That's what I was saying. Is the big man and the guard rotation, those are fine right now for the Boston Celtics. The guard rotation would get a little dicey if you were to miss either Holiday, White, or Pritchard. In that scenario, the Celtics would be in a little bit of a debacle. But with those three, they feel really comfortable just playing those ball handlers. But the center spot, it's Porzingis, it's Horford, it's Luke Cornett, Kada, and Tillman. And you have those five guys as your options, as I mentioned earlier. But the forward rotation, that's where it gets a little, what's going on here? What does the depth look like? You have Brown and Tatum, right? And Tatum's more your point forward in that equation. He's going to guard bigger players, but out on the offensive end of the floor, he's going to play more like a guard. So he's kind of that point forward. But you have Brown there as well. They're going to play heavy minutes, but off the bench, it's really what are we doing here? Because Sam Hauser is sitting right there, and he's been, now I will say he's now shooting over 40% on the season, so he's turning the corner right now a little bit from where he was, but he struggled for a big portion of the season. We've talked about it on post game before. How what is it, his back? Is it just his rhythm within the offense? Is it the Celtics offense alone? We've had so many conversations about what's wrong with Sam Hauser throughout this season, and we can't conclude one point other than he's kind of turning it around right now, and he's the next guy when it comes to forwards. But in that equation, the forward rotation, it just doesn't bring much versatility to the Celtics. You have two of your most extremely versatile players at the forward spots in Brown and Tatum, but afterwards, Sam Hauser, he's not a versatile forward. You want your forwards to be versatile, and that's why the Celtics brought in a guy like Torrey Craig. He's a little bit more versatile when it comes to the defensive end of the floor. Offensively, probably less of a shooter, but it's not as if he can't make shots on the offensive end of the floor. But after that, that's where you look at guys like Shireman, look at guys like Jordan Walsh. Could they potentially get a run in with this Celtic squad? And that's what we're seeing right now is some of the guys from Maine and some of the guys at the bottom of the roster, they're starting to get an actual run with the Boston Celtics. And I don't expect these runs to result in major playoff minutes, but I expect it to result in notes that will later on in time tell us, oh, when it's game 3 or game 4 and things are getting a little dicey on the road and we need a little bit of a spark of energy here, Baylor Shireman, hey, he's sitting there on the bench. We know what he did at the end of the regular season. We saw him go 6 of 7 from 3. We saw him driving and kicking the ball. We saw him playing ferocious, hard-nosed defense. We see Shireman doing that out on the floor, and that's where I think the Boston Celtics right now, that the structure of the rotations is to, number one, ramp up into playoff time to give us certain looks the way we want to play come playoff time. But secondly, it's about integrating some of these players into the rotation that could see some minutes come playoff time and give them a run at the end of the season to see what they look like. I mean, Rob made an excellent point on post game the other night. He said, you want to give these guys a run with the A team. You don't want to just give them run with the main Celtics. You don't want to just give them run in garbage time. You want to see what a guy like Baylor Shireman looks like with the A team of the Boston Celtics, alongside guys like Kristaps Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, Holiday, White at different moments in time. And that's what the Celtics have done lately. And I will say, Shireman, I think he's going to see a little bit more run for the Boston Celtics in the future, whether it's next season or in the playoffs, because number one, the Boston Celtics added guaranteed money to their books during the draft in order to attain Baylor Shireman. And secondly, Baylor Shireman, multi-year college player at two different universities, South Dakota State and Creighton, as we talked about yesterday with Coach AJ, of course. And Baylor Shireman, he's a multi-year college player, and he was picked by the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics added guaranteed money to their books by picking Shireman. He's now spent an entire season essentially with the main Celtics. Baylor Shireman back in September, October is not the same Baylor Shireman we're seeing today. He's developed a little bit more since that point. And I do believe there could be a spot for Baylor Shireman within the Celtics rotation, not only in the playoffs. I will say in the playoffs, the spot in the rotation, I'm telling you, it's going to be 6, 8 minutes, 10 minutes here or there. It's not going to be 20, 26 minutes like we're seeing on a nightly basis all of a sudden from Shireman. But even into the future, I think next season, that's when you could see it's like, Sam Hauser making 11 million next year. I don't know if Sam Hauser's on the books, but I sure know that Baylor Shireman, if there's no Godfather deal that comes around for a player out there, I know we're going to talk about Kevin Durant and that situation, but if there's no Godfather offer out there with a star player, Baylor Shireman, I think he's going to slot into that Celtics rotation next year, and I think we're just seeing the ramp up to that. I know all season we never really saw it, but at this point in time, Shireman is a different player than what we saw at the beginning of the year, and throughout the year, he's developed into the player in which he is now, who's playing out there for the Boston Celtics and who could get a run now with the green team. But I'll say this even more so with Shireman is that like the amount of development he's had within his game, he could be a 2, 3 year NBA veteran already. You think about these guys who come out of college, first, second years, they don't hit their strides until years 3, 4 in the NBA, like right at the end of their rookie deal, maybe even into their rookie extension sometimes. Baylor Shireman, if you look at his age and where he's at within his development, he's already to the point where he could be a 2, 3 year veteran in the NBA. And that's kind of how I look at him, where I go, I'm not waiting until year 3 or 4 with Shireman. I think it's going to be soon. I think it could be like what we're seeing right now at the end of this first season or even into next season, where Shireman, we're going to see he's going to uptick in minutes, specifically next year, and we're going to see him take over a role like Sam Hauser's role on the team. And for him right now, I think it's just important to continuously play well, because an opportunity is certainly there for him to not only see minutes in the future, but see minutes in the present with the Boston Celtics when it comes to that forward rotation, like I was talking about. There is some scarcity, there is some up in the airness with that combination of players after Brown and Tatum. And Shireman, so far, he's been showing us a little bit more versatility to his game than maybe a guy like Torrey Craig or a guy like Sam Hauser, whose ceiling isn't as high up as Baylor Shireman. So Shireman right now, certainly a topic that everybody's talking about in Celtics Nation. But I'll say this too. We talked about some of these guys late in the season who play really well. Some of them, unfortunately, during the playoffs, never get a run. Never get a run. That's what we're sitting here thinking. It's like, is he going to get? That's the question. Is Shireman going to get a run in the playoffs? Is he not? Is it just going to be 6 minutes in game one? We don't see him again until game five. Is it going to be a consistent slew of minutes in the playoffs? We don't really know. This situation has happened quite a few times with the Boston Celtics, where somebody's playing well at the end of the year. The end of the bench guys are coming in. You're thinking, oh, we have a piece in that guy right here. Oh, could he play for the playoffs? And then you don't really see him later on in time. This could be a little bit different because he's your first round draft pick. He has developed throughout the season, and he's your future plan if you're the Boston Celtics. So Shireman is definitely one of the bigger stories in Celtics land right now, and with 10 games left the way he's playing.
Yeah. I mean, you said perfectly. I feel like they did a great job developing Shireman, and he's 24. He's one of the older players. Like, I mean,
Right.
he's not young. He's not a young rookie. He's 24. He's played college basketball. He's had a year in the G League. I think the only reason with Shireman and his talent that he hasn't been up in the NBA all season is because look at what team he's on. Any other team, I feel like he doesn't sit in the G League and develop like that. You agree? Am I wrong with that? I feel like he's up because of that college experience, and he was a good pick. Like he that was a good pick that the Boston Celtics had with him.
Well, that's what I'm saying with the pick alone is like the Celtics, if they didn't care to add to their roster, right, in the summer of last year, they wouldn't have picked Baylor Shireman because Baylor Shireman was picked with pick number 30. That 30th pick in the first round adds guaranteed money to the book. So you make that first round selection, you're going, oh, I have to pay the 30th pick X amount of dollars. With a second round pick, if you were to say select Baylor Shireman 31st overall, his contract is not guaranteed. You could just, select him, never sign him to a deal, nothing. The first round picks, they all get guaranteed money. Every single guy in the first round, 30 picks. That's why you want to go in the first round. But the second round, it's up in the air. The Celtics, they obviously had pick number 30 last year after winning the championship. There could have been a scenario where you go, oh, were they able to trade out of it? They would be able to trade the 30th pick in the draft if they really, really wanted to. Back in the summer of 2024, yet they didn't. They added a player who, to me, it wasn't a JD Davison and Jordan Walsh. Those picks to me were like you're taking on a project.
Yeah.
JD Davison out of Alabama was a project, as we've seen in the G League. I mean, he's the main Celtics. I mean, he's been in the G League so long now. He's the main Celtics leading everything. It feels
And
like.
can I mention something too? Oh, there goes my phone. He's literally the face of there. People go there to watch JD Davison. Like, everyone goes to a Boston Celtics game to watch Jayson Tatum. People go everywhere in Maine to watch JD Davison. That's their Jayson Tatum. That's their LeBron. Like everyone, when JD's on the bench, they're mad. Why did I buy the ticket? Like I've seen it so many times. Like, yeah, I think it was one game he was on the bench, and people are like, why did I even buy my ticket? And you see him on the cover of everything. That's their LeBron. He's a legend there for the Maine Celtics. That's what people pay the money for. That's what people do. It's real. It's realistic. It's realistic.
But that's what I'm saying. It's
crazy.
like he's been there so long. He's become the LeBron of Maine. I mean,
Yeah.
LeBron of Maine, JD Davidson. But same thing with Jordan Walsh, is he's been down there in Maine, and for lesser of a time. But we selected Jordan Walsh, and Jordan Walsh was selected to a team that had not won a championship yet, but knew what the core looked like, and we weren't expecting Jordan Walsh to come in and contribute right away. Jordan Walsh. He was not a multi-year college guy. I mean, he was a one and done at Arkansas. I always think Jordan Walsh was multi-year. Like there have been so many post games like multi-year college, and it's like no, 1 year at Arkansas, 1 year, 1 year. He just seems like a multi-year guy, but he's a 1 year guy. JD Davison too, project guys. These are guys you bring up and think, well, they don't have too much basketball experience. They're around the age of 20. They're going to be developing in the G League. That's the plan with them. Maybe we can use them later on down the line. Obviously, the Celtics have. And there's a myriad of players who have been developed within the G League for the Boston Celtics, or even just on the bottom of the roster for the Celtics. You think about Cornette, think about Sam Hauser, Kada, of course, Peyton Pritchard. All of these guys have been developed in some way on the back half of the Celtics roster, and that's what the Celtics are trying to do with Walsh and J.D. Davison. But Shireman, on the other hand, he doesn't slot into that project player category. When the Celtics selected Baylor Shireman, they were selecting an NBA ready prospect at 30. So to me, that signals, the Celtics somewhat intend on trying to use this guy this year. I mean, at some point in the season, they're going to be trying to use Baylor Shireman, and they hadn't all year. And that was the confusing part is, you drop this NBA ready guy at number 30 in the first round out of Creighton, and you're just not going to use him. You're not going to throw him into a rotation, even amidst the terrible portions of the season in January when you can't find anything. I mean, that was almost what worried me about Shireman halfway through the year. I was going, okay, this guy, he's not even playing minutes for a team that's struggling right now. I mean, this team can't find anything energy-wise, can't do anything. And yet, guys like Shireman and Walsh and even Davison, as a two-way player, Peterson as well, you want to talk about him, they weren't getting any run. And that was almost like a detriment to them because we were struggling. And the team was out there playing inconsistent basketball, needed a spark, and it's like these guys can't give you anything. It's like nothing. Like it's like how bad are they? Like how like that was the legitimate question with them earlier in the season. Now, however, we're seeing Shireman placed into the rotation a little bit more, and we're starting to see him ramp up, and that to me signals, hey, the Celtics, they want to see at the baseline of all this, they want to see what Shireman looks like in the rotation right now. What like how is he playing at this portion of the season when the G League season is winding down? And so I look at Shireman and I go, well, right now, he is to me definitely a player who could make a run at a at some minutes come playoff time. I mean, I said it a million times here already, but that is really the scenario we're in right now with Baylor Shireman. He the whole season didn't get any run, but he yet got a run in the G League with the main. I almost keep saying the main Red Claws.
Wait,
I
hold
mean,
on.
how many times have I said main Red Claws? I mean, I've almost said it a million
This
times.
is my
Yep.
seat.
Oh yeah,
This
bring
is
it
my
back.
seat. This is my seat. This
I
is what I
forgot the
use.
saying on the front of that, by the way. The saying.
Crustacean Nation.
Yep.
And then you got this. This was for the main Red Claws there.
Yep.
I
See,
want
I
that.
keep calling them
Boy.
red. I keep almost calling them red claws. But with the main Celtics, Baylor Shireman's had another year of development, and he is in that age range of he's actually closer to Brown and Tatum than he is to some of the rookies coming into the NBA, whether it was last year or even this year. So Shireman, I think there's some definite like where he was picked in the draft and how the Celtics went about that pick, that signaled to me that the Celtics wanted somebody to contribute to their roster from the draft, and that could have been a guy like Shireman. And so far, I mean, we haven't really seen it with the team yet. At the end of the year, we're starting to see some glimpses, and I wouldn't be surprised if that ramp up is quick because he is that ready guy. I mean, he's like you said, Griffin. He's 24 years old. I mean, he's not. I'm
Yeah.
not waiting until year 3. I'm
No,
not waiting until year 4 for the
you can't.
emergence of
You can't.
Shireman. I mean, I thought we were going to see it a little bit throughout the this whole regular season. We haven't, but finally, that's what I'm saying. And finally, at the end, we're seeing it. And I'm happy with that. But I think even moving forward into next season, we're going to see him more and more and more
A
for the
lot.
Celtics team. And I think this is only the beginning. Whether I don't know why it's only the beginning, really. For me, I don't know if it was within his play or if it was in what the Celtics plan was for him, but we are starting to see him play, and that's for me what is the biggest factor here is just seeing what we have out of Shireman with the A team at the end of the season. That could affect the playoffs, could not whatsoever. But that's just something that later on down the line, we're gonna have to wait and see on that. But I will say Shireman, a little bit different of a situation than say somebody like Jabari Bird a long time ago, where that in 17-18, everybody's going crazy over Jabari Bird, how well he played the back half of the season, yet wasn't actually ready for to contribute to the Boston Celtics at that point in time. And I think Shireman, it's a little bit of a different scenario right now with
Yeah.
Shireman than we have seen in the past with guys who come in and just kind of like, oh, we're here. And it's like, you haven't been here that long. It's like Shireman, he's been in college for quite a while. He's been in the G League now for a full season. Now with the A team of the Boston Celtics, it's like, okay, maybe this is the moment. Maybe.
No, I agree. And for opening day tomorrow, baseball, it kind of in a sense too, I feel like it's kind of like the players out of Japan, like they're ready. They're ready to play. But ultimately, I want to get into this. Boston Celtics, Kings game. We talked last week with David kind of how he thought that might be a game that we lose because the Kings are playing for playoff basketball and that's going to be a competitive game. However, the Boston Celtics won with a final score of 113-95, but some unfortunate news happened, as you guys see right there. Celtics superstar Jayson Tatum went down with an injury. Sabonis on the 3 stepped in his landing space, and you guys saw that. You guys have heard a lot about it. He looked like he was in pain, like he's never been before. Like legitimate concern. You see him on the ground. That is not. I don't know if you guys could see it, but like, do you guys see his face? That's real pain. Like that's not all right. Get me out of the game. No, he was legitimately hurt. But yeah, just showing that kind of and it was just unfortunate. I mean, you look at it, even with the minutes he played, in 26 minutes, had 25 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, shot 53.3% from the field goal. There's been a lot of misconceptions about it. We were very scared. I will say this: I wasn't watching the game, and I looked on my phone, and all I see in the Celtics Talk Weekly group chat is, "Oh no, like what's going on?" And I'm scared. I'm sitting in my car, because I'm driving home. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, oh my, what happened?" And then Tatum, I see Tatum, and I'm like, like that just struck fear. However, there has been some good news. We're doing this a couple days after, so we've heard some great things, great positive things. We won't talk on Tatum too much as we have Durant news and some other stuff, but we've heard some positive things. He didn't leave in a boot. He didn't leave on crutches. He left walking in some sneakers, so that's positive, and it's an ankle sprain. We know that. Do you guys want to kind of give a rundown on where the concerns is? I know we just saw some other great news. Seamus, you mind saying the news that we're seeing right now? But like I said, there's not much. We need Tatum going into playoffs. It's a concern. I would say, I said this on the recap yesterday, shut him down. I would shut him down. Even if it's one where he could come back in 7 days, shut him down till playoffs, because that is your main catalyst behind the Boston Celtics. You talk
Are
about
you talking about the news, by the way, that we got 7 minutes ago
yeah,
about? Okay, so
yeah,
officially, let me get an official reading on this. So, I mean, from multiple sources here, but hey, per the Boston Celtics, we'll do that. That's the most official out there. Per the Boston Celtics, Jayson Tatum has been upgraded to questionable
wow. Oh wait, I didn't
tonight.
see that.
So, left ankle sprain, Jayson Tatum goes from doubtful to questionable for tonight's game against the
Oh
Phoenix
my
Suns. Now, I
gosh.
will say questionable doesn't mean he's going to play, but
No, but it's
there is some like virtue signaling within the NBA injury report from the standpoint of you like they won't directly tell us things, but they'll kind of give out the signal of like, okay, this is either better or worse. With Tatum, if this was worse, maybe we don't hear anything, but he would have been just out. Coming into today, there would have been no doubtful. He would have been just out. It's at a doubtful level for Jayson Tatum coming into today, and now all of a sudden he's upgraded to questionable. I know it doesn't seem like within those labels, right? It doesn't really seem like much has happened. It's like, oh, he
no.
went from doubtful to now it's like, oh, now he's questionable. It's like it doesn't really seem like much has changed, but that's kind of the signaling that I see within the NBA is when you have those levels of, oh, you're doubtful and then you go to questionable. It's like when a guy's been out for, months or weeks, a guy goes from being out to questionable. It's like, oh wait, he
It's
might
like
actually come back. He's coming
progress.
back, and
You
that's what
see
we saw with
progress.
Kristaps Porzingis earlier this year, where it's like, oh, he's questionable on the injury report. That's the great sign with Jayson Tatum is the fact they've upgraded himself to questionable with that left ankle sprain. So I personally don't think Jayson Tatum will play tonight.
No, he
I
shouldn't.
don't want to
I would
see
say,
Jayson Tatum play.
can I say something? I would just say this. I would shut him down at least for a good amount of time.
There's only 10 games left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Lewis, I'm
But
curious.
I wouldn't shut him down for all 10 games because
Okay,
to
yeah,
me
Nah,
it's like
yeah.
I don't want Jason Tatum his first game back being game 1 of the NBA playoffs. Plus, I feel like this ankle sprain,
you're right. You're right.
it's
Yeah.
like is it that like what if by game 10 he's like I've been healthy for a week and a half. Like he's like I want to play basketball. Like I've been healthy. Like
Can
that
I
to me it's
add
like oh you could hold him out
something?
a little bit too long in that scenario.
I
And
mean, you
he's
also want him to get some action,
yeah,
to play.
and
You
he's one.
also want to see that from him, but that depends on him
Yeah,
because he's the one who knows how he feels.
and he's one of the players that you have to fight to get him off the court. You know that, you've seen that before. But Lewis, what are your thoughts? You were you when I called you earlier, you said what's going on with Taylor, and you saw it. What are your thoughts?
I was looking for parking, and my friends they called me, and I'm like, they're like, "Oh my god, bro! Oh my god!" And I'm like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And they showed me they shared their screen and they showed me the clip, and oh my god, I thought about you right away, bro.
Yeah, it's
I
definitely
thought about you right away. I was just like, Like just like basically pray. He wasn't in my prayers that night. I will tell you that.
Oh,
Tatum wasn't in my prayers.
yeah, it was scary. I was scared. But
Oh, that was just
I kind of want to move on to a bigger topic. I feel like because, well,
Wait,
yeah,
wait. For this Jason Tatum injury, I will say just
yeah,
one more note on this.
yeah.
I
Of
think
course.
all of us had the same reaction
Mhm.
of the season stopped when he was on the floor. It was
Yes,
like, oh
yes,
my God, like, is
yeah.
that the Larry O'Brien trophy like falling
right
off
in
a
front of us.
cliff
Yeah,
right in front of us? Like that was seriously like, oh my, I said it on post game the other night. The president has been hit. The president, like that's what it felt like. It was like, oh my,
no,
like secret security,
Yeah.
like all like, oh my God, like the president's been hit. Like it felt like such
let's
the
just pull it.
magnitude of the moment felt so large in this moment that I mean, seriously, I mean, I all of Celtics Nation was sitting there holding their breath,
Right.
praying. Just you could feel all our hearts just sank down into our stomachs. It was just when you see that out of your the way it happened too, like the way he's holding his ankle, his leg, you're thinking like, oh my, did he like break his leg? Like, did he
Yeah.
break? Like, you think like guys, they'll sprain their ankles or twist their ankles. But even when that happens, like we've seen like really severe ones where guys dislocate their ankles or, it looks like their foot is literally off their body. We saw
Jaden
this is kind
Ivey,
of a different
Jaden Ivey,
situation, but Taylor
Jaden.
Hendricks earlier this season actually broke his leg and his ankle was, like,
Oh,
you know,
I
I
didn't see that. I
dislocated.
was.
It was that's the
Yeah.
technical term, but it was like his foot is off his body. It's like it looks like his foot is not even on his body. We all saw with Gordon Hayward years ago, but that's what it felt like for Tatum. It was like oh my God, Tatum, like please your leg, like please please be intact. That's
Please
what it
be
was like. It was like please be intact. Like when you remove your hand from your like lower tibia fibula area, it's like please be intact. Please be intact. That's really what it was when Jason Tatum was on the floor. And I mean, right now, we're all kind of like, sighing a little bit, going, okay, just upgraded questionable the other night. He was joking around in the locker room, was all good. Like, I think if it was a serious injury, he wouldn't have been in the locker room the other night with both shoes joking around. It would have been MRI, X-rays, back in the room. Like, because some ankle sprains, I mean, look, the Toronto Raptors, they are tanking right now. I mean, let's face it. I mean, they're where they are right now in the standings. They're not going for anything. But they traded for Brandon Ingram halfway through the season. Brandon Ingram has been out since like January with an ankle sprain. I mean, this is like the worst. Now, I will say it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure he's fine and they're just pushing it down the line. But Brandon Ingram hasn't played a game with the Raptors yet because of his ankle sprain that he sustained a long time ago with the Pelicans. I mean, I will say that injury initially, uh, it's like, okay, two tanking teams could just be holding him out. But we have seen guys in the past sustain ankle sprains and they're out for a month and a half. They're out for 2 months. I mean, that injury right there to Jason Tatum could have easily put him out until what? It's March. I mean, it could have put him out until mid-May. And at that point, it's like, oh, we're halfway through the playoffs. Like, how are we going to get to the first and second round without Jason Tatum? So Celtics fans, Celtic Nation, we all got lucky on that play in that event because what it looked like initially, I mean, seriously, it looked like one of those like heartbreaking, we'll remember this forever type of moments where Jason Tatum went down against the Kings in our season. Like you think about 2009, Kevin
Yeah.
Garnett goes down in 2009. That season is never the same in terms of going back to back because Kevin Garnett, he's not there for the playoffs.
That's what I was thinking of. I literally, when I was in the car, all I was thinking of was 2009. This is what it is. And I was heartbroken. It was sad. It was scary. But I wanted to add on some good news and we'll kind of move along just because time, obviously. But we saw him with Phoenix too, jumping and getting some exercise in. So he's good. I'm going to say this. I feel like the Tatum concern at its peak, like you just said, Seamus, was through the roof. Like, all right, this is bye Larry O'Brien. Now it's down to all right, we could finally breathe. We could breathe again. But I want to kind of get into this. So you guys heard the breaking news. You guys have heard it over and over and over and over again. Look what it is. You guys see it. You guys see who that is. You guys see who that is. A few years ago, you guys knew the rumors. Kevin Durant to Boston. And now look who's at the middle of your screen. That is Kevin Durant in a Boston Celtics uniform. Yep. Just you guys could look at that for a second. Let that sink in. Yeah. The rumors are back after just winning a championship, after finally getting over that hump and finally winning the championship. You see that again. I'm gonna go on a tangent, and I told Seamus, prepare for my tangent. All right. I'm gonna go off about it. So Kevin Durant, a couple years ago, you guys saw it. Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant. You guys saw it over and over and over again. It was pretty much a done deal. Kevin Durant was getting sent to the Boston Celtics for Jaylen Brown. It was just, it was so, it frustrated me so much. All right, I'm gonna go off. I do not like Kevin Durant whatsoever. I dislike Kevin Durant. I hate his decisions he makes in the NBA. He's a snake, and I never have liked Kevin Durant. He's a great player. You got to give him his flowers. He's a phenomenal player. He's great. He's great. I mean, he's great. But him going to the Brooklyn Nets, trying to start up his super team, and then he's like, all right, how about this? I want to go to Phoenix. I want to go ruin what they have there. The Phoenix Suns almost won a championship. Like, you think about it, the Phoenix Suns with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, they almost got it done there. And now you're like, all right, well, I'm gonna go to Phoenix. I have Bradley Beal now and Devin Booker, and look what he's done to that. He is not a savior. He's a cancer to teams. You guys saw it with the Brooklyn Nets. They were supposed to be a dynasty. They were supposed to be the next big thing. No, he ruined that team. You go to Phoenix, who, all right, last year they struggled a little bit, but they were a team that was on site for championships. Kevin Durant is not that. Kevin Durant is older, but he's a look at me player. He's a player. All right, you got to give the ball to Kevin Durant. I do not like him with Boston. I do not like the idea of giving up Brown. I hate that idea. I don't know who you would give up. I hate that idea. I hate every thought of that. Keep the Boston Celtics how there is. There's a lot of talks about we're going to have to do some roster cuts. We're going to have to bring that salary down. Getting Kevin Durant and bringing him into Boston, I hate the idea of it. I don't like this situation for the Boston Celtics. All right, if he came to the Boston Celtics, I would probably become a fan. Yes, because all right, I love Celtics players, whatever, But what do we have right here? We have Porzingis, we have Drew Holiday, we have Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and look, you have your perfect team. You have your perfect team. We just won the Larry O'Brien trophy. And why would you give up on a team this early? You can't. You can't give up on this team. We are doing good, and the goal right now, the ultimate goal is going back to back. That's what the Boston Celtics are set out to do, and that's the goal. Giving up on that and being like, all right, well, let's look, it's a serious talk. Kevin Durant to Boston next year. Leave that alone. Look what has happened with Durant. Look, you guys see what's been going on with teams. After he left Golden State, did Brooklyn win a championship? No, they did terrible. They gave up on that superstar group right there. Are the Phoenix Suns even a talk for the championship this year? Absolutely not. Last year, there might have been a little more talk. No, not last year, because last year he blew it up too. The year prior to that, maybe a little more talk. Maybe last year a little bit. But Durant destroyed that talk. So I'm just disappointed in that. I'm disappointed that this is a conversation we have to have once again. I was happy when the Durant sweepstakes were over. But now it's a cause again. Lewis, what are your thoughts? Sorry, I had to go off. I am not a fan of Durant Boston. Nope. Stay away. Get away. Go wherever you want except for Boston. Go. Hate it.
I mean, he is a good player. I will tell you that. He's an amazing player, but I don't like him either. I don't like him, and it's because of his decisions in the past. Like, he decided to go to Golden State Warriors, and then decided to make his own super team. And like, you see Tatum suffered. Tatum couldn't get into the finals. He lost in the finals. Tatum suffered, but he got the deal done. Tatum didn't leave, and I love those type of players. You get me?
Yep.
I love those type of players. I hate those like players like Durant who just leaves and go into a super squad. You get me? Super team. Like the Warriors, I feel like they didn't even need him. He just went there like to get that ring. But he had his chances as well. But it's just like he can't he can't like deliver. But he is a good player. I really like him, but at this point, he's old. I don't know what
He's
they
old.
gonna
Yeah.
ask for him. It's not like he's not like 29 or something. But he is still good. But what's the price for him? If we get him, I mean, imagine the salary.
Wait, is he a free agent next year? Is that what we're saying, or is he? Would that have to be a trade?
So Kevin Durant this season. Now this is pretty obsolete because the Phoenix Suns. He's going to be on the Suns roster for the rest of the season. They're going to divvy out the rest of his checks, but he's making $51.2 million this year. To me, I don't know who. I really don't know who came up with this rumor about Kevin Durant. I believe it's from Fox Sports One. Don't exactly know the person who gave out the rumor, but I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I would see with Kevin Durant when it comes to potentially joining the Boston Celtics would be the new Celtics ownerships or the new Celtics ownership led by Bill Chisholm. Look, I'm hoping Bill Chisholm is great. It's going to be a great owner, but
Oh no, we are not bringing the scary stuff back.
I'm
Seamus,
just saying,
give
okay,
me one
there is a
thing that night.
precedent that is
Seamus,
being set right now. Here's what I'm saying. I'm just going to say this. Wick Grosbeck, like, okay, I don't, maybe I want to get my facts straight on this before I really talk about this aspect. So I'll refrain from going too far into the ownership thing. But Bill Chisholm, I'm just saying, we don't know what type of owner he's going to be. We don't really know when he's going to take full control of the team. They're saying, oh, 3 years, but no, you don't buy $6 billion item and 3 years later you're going to take it over. It's like, no, you're going to take it. You're going to progressively take it over as soon as humanly possible, and everything else is just the labeled hoopla when it comes to him and with Wick Grosbeck and the Grosbeck family of who's running what. If you're divvying out the checks within the organization, you're going to be making the decisions within the organization, no doubt about that. And so for me, that's where I look at it and go, this could the Celtics go wild with new ownership? 100%. 100% they could do something wild out there because what we've seen over the last 20 years with Wick Grosbeck is consistency. We know what type of decisions he's going to make. We know that he's going to stick with his guys. We know that he's big on development and letting guys really go through those moments like we're talking about, Durant kind of hopped ship there in Oklahoma City, went over to Golden State to build a championship roster, but Wick Grosbeck with the Boston Celtics, it's always been about building those championship rosters from the ground up. Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown drafted to the Boston Celtics, growing those championship rosters from the ground up. And we all know Wick sticks with his guys and develops his guys. We know the level of consistency that comes with that and the standards in the Celtics organization. Now those standards are a little, we don't really know what those standards are going to be. Is it going to be, an impulsive type of decision making? Is there going to be impulses that happen that affect decision making when it comes to going out and attaining certain players? I mean, think about how many times we could have traded Brown or Tatum. I mean, Brown or Tatum, they were almost traded as picks. So I think they were the Nets picks at a certain point in time. 2016 Nets pick, 2017 Nets pick. Everybody was saying, "Oh, can we trade that?" I mean, that was a legitimate thing on the table. Phil Jackson from the New York Knicks in 2017 asked the Boston Celtics and offered this package, Kristaps Porzingis, for Jaylen Brown, who at that point was just a rookie, averaged like 7 points per game his rookie year, really didn't do anything as a rookie. I mean, I remember he scored 19 or 20 points against the Magic one game and was like, oh, he scored over 20. It's like Shireman right now. Like Shireman scores 20. We're going, oh, that was Jaylen Brown at a certain point in time after that season. And before Jayson Tatum, the Celtics picked Jayson Tatum with that third overall pick. It was that third pick and Jaylen Brown for Kristaps Porzingis. Well, you look what happened. The Celtics went, no, we're not doing that. And at the time, that wasn't outlandish because it was number 3 overall and like a pretty good prospect in Jaylen Brown, but not a developed prospect, not a guaranteed whatsoever. I mean, he could have been another glorified Andrew Wiggins. Then people forget 2018-19 and even into 1920, we were thinking Jayson Tatum was going to be an Andrew Wiggins like player where he's just not quite that impactful the way you'd want him to be as a superstar. But these guys, they were almost traded about my rate of times, a plethora of times. And even looking at that package back in 2017, it's like you could have had Porzingis for Brown and Tatum. Instead, now we're watching Kristaps Porzingis just play next to Brown and Tatum, and that's part of the patience that pays out in time. Is we didn't make that knee jerk move for Kristaps, a solidified star, a rising star at that point, 2 seasons into his NBA career. We didn't make that deal then so that we could keep our picks, keep our players, develop their our guys, and then eventually later on in time we get Kristaps Porzingis. Anyway, that's what I see within the new ownership as we don't know if that's going to happen. We don't know if that level of patience is going to happen. We don't know if a Jimmy Butler or a Paul George 2017, 2018, 2019, they came around, Jimmy Butler, he was disgruntled with the Chicago Bulls. He was on the trade market. Paul George with the Indiana Pacers, he was on the trade market. DeMarcus Cousins, people forget, with the Sacramento Kings, he was on the trade market back in 2017. And it was, are we going to trade Tatum, Brown, one of these picks? Like, are we going to trade him for one of these stars? And that's what I see in the future as maybe there is a little less patience in our ownership now where we potentially make some of those deals and we're not as patient. We don't pass up on all the time in 2019, 2020, and 2021 to go build a championship roster in 22, 23, 24. Maybe that time there's a little bit more of a knee jerk in there. That's my concern with ownership because we're really talking about Kevin Durant right now. Kevin Durant, financially, it does not make sense for the Boston Celtics. I'll
He's
brief this.
36. He's 30.
Between Holiday, White, Porzingis, Brown, and Tatum, those 5 players on the payroll next season, their salaries combined increase $35 million next year. So the starting 5 we're rolling out today, they'll be $35 million more expensive next year than they are this year. And that's going to cause a massive problem within the Celtics salary books because the luxury tax at that point is just going to be astronomical. I mean, I cannot express how astronomical this luxury tax bill could look. I mean, it could be $500 million on top of what the team salary uh, sheet already looks like. That could be around 200 million plus. I mean, you're talking about a near $1 billion basketball team at the end of the day. That is just insanity for 15 guys. But that's the thing with Kevin Durant is where do you slot him in? We're already at a point where the Celtics are hamstrung financially with all of the players on the roster. I mean, Brown, Tatum, White, Holiday, Porzingis, you're going to have to move off of one of those guys for Kevin Durant, if not multiple of them for Kevin Durant. And in that scenario, who do we do? I mean, who do we look to and who do the now to me the Suns don't have much leverage, I will say. But Kevin Durant makes actually that's the number I really wanted to get to here is Kevin Durant next season going into next year. This year I gave the obsolete number, but next year he makes $54.7 million. I mean, where does that realistic? I mean, if you cut out Drew Holiday's 35 million next year, you're still looking at that's 21 million extra dollars to put Kevin Durant on your roster over Drew Holiday. And is that really worth it at that point in time? I mean, I really look at it and go, I don't know how you're talking about maybe trading Brown for Kevin Durant, but to me that doesn't make any sense because Kevin Durant is over 35 years old, whereas Jaylen Brown, he's in his 20s. It's like, why would you trade a guy in his 20s in the midst of his prime at age 28 for somebody who's going to be 36, 37 years old? Does not make any sense in the world whatsoever. You're probably looking at moving off Brown because you're swapping a Ford for a Ford and the salaries. Brown is going to be making just a very hefty salary moving forward, 60 plus million in the next couple of years. But those guys, it's like why would you trade Brown for Durant? That just doesn't that I don't see the Celtics going up. I mean, I see them going sideways and their window actually shortening. Doesn't make any sense to me. But furthermore, it's like Porzingis, but anybody else, Porzingis, Holiday, White, you're paying an extra 20 plus million just to add Durant. And it's like is it worth 20 extra million towards the luxury tax, towards the
No.
salary sheet, just to add Durant over a guy like Holiday, over a guy like White, over a guy like Porzingis? Doesn't make much sense to me to add $20 million more to your salary sheet just to add a guy like Kevin Durant and take out one of these other intangible pieces. And then you're moving on to guys like Tatum or Brown. I mean, all the bench guys, they don't matter. I mean, they could be throw-ins like Al Horford or Sam Hauser. Al Horford's actually a free agent, so he wouldn't be able to fit in there. But a guy like Sam Hauser, you could throw him in there. But they're not making up the big salary you need to meet that 54 million in order to actually go and trade for Kevin Durant. It would have to be Porzingis, White, Holiday. And like I said, if you're replacing one of those guys with Kevin Durant, how much better are you getting? Plus the price tag of $20 million more. After that, you're looking at Brown or Tatum. Brown or Tatum makes no sense to me. They've been here this entire time. They're in the midst of their primes. They've won a championship together. Why would you go out and grab Kevin Durant? That's where I see this rumor. I'm going, where does this rumor even come from? Where
Yeah.
does this rumor, like, financially, it doesn't make any sense. Logistically, it doesn't make any sense for the Celtics. From a futuristic standpoint, it doesn't make any sense. Like none of the Kevin Durant rumors make any sense because of his salary, because of his age, because of his play, because of where the team is right now. None of it makes any sense. It was cool to think about back in maybe 2021 or 2022
Yeah.
when, oh yeah, the Celtics, they're kind of middling. And in 2022, we made the finals, of course. But in the middle of that year, it's like, oh, we're middling, 18, 20. It's like, could we, get somebody like Kevin Durant? Could we get a star on this roster? The big one back then, we dodged a bullet because, hey, talking about Kevin Durant's teammate, Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal. We all wanted Bradley Beal at his huge salary. And that would have been a complete disaster if we went out and actually traded for Bradley Beal because we see he's not even playing tonight for the Phoenix Suns. The Suns and Celtics, of course, play later tonight as this being recorded. We'll note that for the people.
Yeah.
But Kevin Durant, the whole thing doesn't make any sense. And for me, Kevin Durant, he's falling into this category of player where I just some of the old guard. LeBron's lucky that Luca is on his roster right now because some of the old guard, looking at with their salaries, going, okay, they're being paid for what they did a while ago in their prime.
Yeah.
Like Kevin Durant,
That's
54
true.
million for Kevin Durant. That's his payday for what he's been able to do his entire NBA career.
No,
And
yeah.
I know Kevin Durant's still a talented player today, but if you're paying Kevin Durant $54 million, can you really fill out the rest of the roster behind Durant, who's not in his prime, to actually go out there and make up a championship team? That is where I look at this whole situation and go, we've seen this happen before in time with Russell Westbrook, John Wall. I mean, guys who have completely fallen off the cliff in terms of them being in their prime. Now, Durant hasn't fallen off the cliff like John Wall, and I would say Russell Westbrook. Did he ever really fall off a cliff, or really was his usage percentage taken down? It's like Russell Westbrook. I feel like teams just went away from using him. But regardless, within those situations, it's it's like Durant, if you have Durant on your team at his salary number and he's not in his prime, can you really build a championship roster around that? That's where I look at LeBron. It's like age 40, he's making 50 million. It's like if he didn't have Luca, another top 5 NBA player on his roster right now, I don't know if you would have as much of a chance. Like that's the same thing with the Warriors over time as Draymond and Curry. They're kind of falling back a little bit. And then you all of a sudden look at the rest of the roster and go, they have to they have to hit on all these draft picks and all these young guys, and it's been a little the mix. They've had mixed results in Golden State with that. Obviously, you just traded for Jimmy Butler, and they're making a run, but that window is so short for Golden State. I mean, they're at desperation trading for Jimmy Butler, but that window is so short. Right now, the Celtics, if they can re-sign Tatum, if they can re-sign Brown, even after their current deals, which their extensions haven't even kicked in, so that's kind of a conversation for later on in time. But their championship window, I mean, it could be much further down the line than what we think. It's like, oh, this year, with this team, this iteration, just this team. It's very common for championship squads and dynasties to potentially take a step back, a year off, and then not rebuild, but retool a little bit, and then get back into a contention. I mean, we saw the Spurs; they won in 2000, or say they won in 1999, they won in 2003, they won in 2005, 2007, and then again in 2014. I mean, you retool; you don't have to go back to back every single year. There is an increased pressure on this iteration of the Celtics team to go back to back and to win as many titles with this squad because we can't really financially keep the squad together for the long run. But if you have the pillars of Brown and Tatum there, in time, you might be able to build another championship level squad, even without a Porzingis, a Holiday, or a White later on down the line if you keep Brown and Tatum in place and you don't go and trade for a crazy superstar out there. With the Mavericks, with the Phoenix Suns, I mean, both of those teams really look at where they were just a couple of seasons ago facing off in the Western Conference semifinals. They've completely put themselves in a place where their window is the next 2 years, and then after that, they're up in the air. I mean, the Suns with Kevin Durant, they had this little 2.5 year window, didn't really do anything with it, and that's it. It's like, you sacrifice the Suns sacrificed their championship window from what you were talking about, Griffin, with Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson. Hey, throw out Jay Crowder in there. Hey, we'll throw Jay Crowder in there as well.
Yeah,
He was with the Suns
Celtics
back
legend
then.
right now.
Of course, and number 9, boss man, got to give him a shout out. But that Suns championship squad, that longevity was sacrificed for Kevin Durant. The other team I was talking about, the Mavericks, their long term success with Luka Doncic, who's 25 years old, which isn't it crazy? Doncic, Shireman, only 1 year apart there. Just going to
That's
point that out right there. But Doncic, 25 years old, the Mavericks, they trade for a 31-year-old Kyrie who just tore, or sorry, they did trade for Kyrie earlier on in time, tore his ACL. But then they go and trade obviously Luca for Anthony Davis, and now all of a sudden the Mavericks, instead of having this elongated window with Luca at 25, now it's like, okay, 2 3 years, Kyrie and Anthony Davis, they're not going to be. I mean, they're not going to be relevant. I'm already looking at Kyrie going, is he going to come back the same from this ACL injury? I mean, he's old. He's an older player. His body might react a little bit differently to surgery and rehab, differently than what it was when he came back from his knee injuries earlier in his career. So that to me is just where the Celtics, they cannot go in for Kevin Durant from the standpoint of, you see these teams out here, they're trading for the old guard. I mean, even the Clippers. I mean, you trade for James Harden. Not like the Clippers had a young window, but they kind of did. It's like, all right, you trade for Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. That didn't work out. You trade away Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. All of a sudden, he's the league's MVP. And now you're dealing with a guy like James Harden later on in time you trade for him. And that's where the Clippers kind of moved to that old guard, took a chance on their longevity for the moment. Didn't happen. And now it's like, where do they really go? The old guard, they're going to eventually retire. But the Suns, the Clippers, the Mavericks are all examples of that. The Celtics cannot fall into the same category in time with Kevin Durant if they were to want to go out and get him. But again, it just doesn't make much sense. Porzingis, White, Holiday, salary wise, you'd have to move off one of them, but then you'd be adding salary, which then you couldn't do that in a trade. You have to find a way to see. That's the thing. The trade, you'd be sending out way more than what you're getting back in Kevin Durant, and that's just fundamentally that's not what you want to do in a trade. I mean, we saw the Hawks and the Pelicans do that last summer. It's like, oh, the Pelicans, you give away Dyson Daniels for DeJounte Murray. And it's like, oh, no, you wouldn't even trade Dyson Daniels for DeJounte Murray straight up now. And the Pelicans gave up Larry Nance and picks on top of that just to get DeJounte Murray. So the Celtics want to avoid something like that. And to me, this Kevin Durant rumor, I don't think we have to worry about it.
No.
I really, I don't see it as financially or logistically possible for the Boston Celtics. And it just doesn't make much sense to me. The only conspiratorial side I would have with this is new Celtics ownership wants to make a big splash, doesn't really care about the culture, doesn't care about the championships, doesn't care about the rings, doesn't understand everything that's been built the past really decade with the Boston Celtics. And they just come in here and blow everything up to oblivion to the point where we have Kevin Durant on the roster. That is a possibility, I will say, but I'm going to say it's slim compared to the Celtics standing pat and not going out and getting Kevin Durant. I don't think you have to worry, Griffin. Kevin Durant, I would say I'm on the I love Kevin Durant from the, like, obviously the play side of him. Personality side, I think
No.
he's a little
Yeah.
tricky. I think he's fine in like a chill setting. Like, you go outside, you might sit on the porch, might smoke a little bit with Kevin Durant. It's like, yeah, you'd be chill in that scenario. Like, you're a little chill. Like, you'd be like, oh yeah, Kevin Durant. You're like, okay, yeah, Kevin Durant. But then from like a teammate in the locker, like I see Kevin Durant as like this superstar who's like non-vocal. It's like, oh, he's our best player. It's like, what do we want to do for him? And he's like not the most approachable, most vocal person in the world. And I think that can rub some people the wrong way. And he's obviously very active on social media and with the media, and he's always battled. This is one thing. Kyrie and Kevin Durant, I'll say this about them. They battled the media. No, no. You can't battle the media and make sense of the media. Like they tried to make sense of the media from the standpoint of like this is what you guys doing, this is what we're saying, this is what you guys are doing, and the media was just taking all of that and going, oh, actually, what we're doing is mining content out of every single word you're saying. So if you're gonna say this to us, it's like we're gonna present it in this way over here, and it's like Kyrie and Kevin Durant would just keep shooting themselves in the foot because they would try to explain like oh no, this is the game of the media, like this is what you guys do, blah blah, and then the media would turn around and make all of that conversation into like oh their problems, like oh they're annoyed with this or it's like, and they would just be kind of like they would explain, they would kind of argue, they would debate, they would have more intelligent takes at the podium, and they would always battle with the media, and from that standpoint it's just I feel like kind of they got into a realm of the NBA fan base not really liking them. But Kevin Durant in Boston, it's like it's
Don't
not
want,
happening. It's just
don't
not
want.
happening. It's from my perspective. It's like we don't ever have to deal with this. I mean, unless he's taking a minimum later on in time, we don't ever have to deal with Kevin Durant in Boston. I don't see that as a plausible scenario playing out. We already saw one of the two, Kyrie play in Boston, and have we learned? Have we learned?
Yeah. We'll wrap this up though. You guys heard about the Kevin Durant stuff. I'm tired of him. I don't want him. Go Kevin Durant. I'm done with the rumors. But to finish this off, just really quick, I want to say before we get into our predictions, thank you again so much. This has been incredible. Can't wait to see what we could do with this. But let's get into the predictions really quick. Obviously tonight talking about Kevin Durant, I guess we could show this clip one more time because we won't be seeing that actually happening. So we'll just show it. But with that
It's a
being
cool
said,
edit. I mean, how many cool Kevin Durant edits have we all made? Like,
I,
here, I'll go
yeah,
find mine. Keep
yeah,
keep going, Griffin. But
yeah, that's a cool one. But ultimately, tonight play the Phoenix Suns. Saturday you play the Spurs, no Wemby, and then Monday face the Grizzlies, and then we will be back here next Wednesday for the podcast. Go check out yesterday's episode, very great episode, March Madness. But with that being said, 3 games, Lewis. What do you got our record? Oh wait, we got it. Yep. See, it's like with Soto with the MLB. You gotta have it. You gotta have like it's cool edit. Cool edit.
And he looks tough. I'm not gonna lie. He looks tough
Yeah,
with the
it's
Celtics
tough.
jersey.
It's cool, but I don't want it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
But anyways, you got Suns, Spurs, and Grizzlies. Grizzlies been a hard fighting team. Lewis, what do you have our record being next Wednesday? 3 games. What 3-0? What we got? 3 games.
I mean, I don't want to be negative, but I'm going 3-0. I have
Hey.
to. If I go 2-1, then it is being negative. So, yeah, 3-0.
Suns, Spurs, Grizzlies.
Yep. What you got?
First of all, the Suns are playing some all right basketball right now, so got to give them a little bit of a shout out. But I still think the Celtics should go in there and take care of business tonight in Phoenix. If they don't, rip. Spurs, count
That's
me
it.
out on the Spurs. No Wemby. I understand. Like the Spurs have secretly kind of been in that tank right now mode a little bit. Like they've fallen off quite a bit. The Grizzlies have something to play for. I'm interested to see if John Morant will actually play that game or not. That's the game I could see where we go, oh, maybe we slip up there because we're not starting everybody, and the Grizzlies go out there and try to win the game from the standpoint they're trying to get the second seed in the West right now. I'll still go 3-0 because I believe in the Celtics team right now, and we're still on that road to 62, of course, with Franco. Road to 62. We're still on it. We're still walking. And I think this could be something the next 10 games, like next 9 games, like, okay, will it happen? Will it happen? I mean, 60 is kind of the like, all right, can we get to that threshold? But 62, it's like that'd be awesome too. I did want to show this off though before we leave. This was after the 2022 finals and after the 2022 draft. And folks, this is not
GDs. Okay.
hasn't happened yet. Hasn't literally 3 years ago, I made that. Has not happened yet, but he's still in the system. So
He
just
is.
saying. That opinion was mine from the fact, hey, the Celtics championship roster, Well, they went to the finals in 2022, but the Celtics that year, the thing about that finals team is they really only had like 8 to 10 players, and then the 5 players on the back end of the roster were straight up like, no, you're never playing these guys in any scenario. It was like Malik Fitz, it was Jawan Morgan, it was Nick Stauskas. Probably forgetting more guy. I know we re-signed Luke Cornett. It was like Sam Hauser was some of these guys you think about like Cornette and Hauser now you use with the Celtics, but back in 2022 it was like never, never,
Never,
never, never,
never, never.
never.
Yeah.
But that's where I saw him like, oh, JD, there's like 3, 4 open roster spots, like JD Davison, like here we
Yeah.
go, like come on. But still, 2A players still trying to make his way onto the roster. But we'll see. We'll see. There, like talked about the guards earlier. If the guard rotation is great for the Celtics now, Pritchard, White, Holiday. But I'm saying if one of those guys go down, it's gonna be a little thin, and then you're looking at literally JD Davison as that next guy. So maybe next season, but
We'll
so
see.
far hasn't happened.
No,
Just came across that though real quick. Poking a
that's
little fun.
incredible. But you guys said 3-0. I'm gonna follow you guys on that. I'm going 3-0 too. I feel like the Grizzlies could definitely be one that bites you. I think that's one that you could definitely see happening 2-1 for sure. But I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say the Celtics have some steam going forward and they want to make a statement. So I'm going 3-0. But with that being said, go check out the post-game show tonight over at Celtics Talk Weekly. And also, in addition to that, we'll check out the recap, which will probably be posted after. We'll figure it out. But check that out to hear all the stats. And go check out yesterday's podcast. A very good episode, NCAA. But thank you guys again for watching. We will see you guys soon. Peace.
Peace, yo.